Government has a solution to almost anything because we don't pay any attention to the Constitution.
We believe that this act that was passed tonight is an all-American act, honoring our founders' vows to the future.
I will not vote for a single piece of legislation that I can't reconcile with the text and the original understanding of the U.S. Constitution.
Returning to the Constitution. That's what Republicans want to do in the new Congress. And in the last year, the 223-year-old document has been getting a whole lot of lip service. So when the 112th Congress is sworn in next week, expect to hear a lot more about it because the Constitution is at the center of 3 coming congressional battles. And we love wonkery mixed up with politics, so we're bringing our favorite wonk into the discussion to tee up some of the fights ahead. MSNBC contributor Ezra Klein is a staff writer for the Washington Post and joins us now. Ezra, good to see you. Thanks so much.
Nora.
You heard all the different politicians talking about the Constitution. Well, this is what's going to happen. When Republicans take over next week, they're going to do something that apparently has never been done in the 221-year history of the House of Representatives. They are going to read the Constitution aloud. Is this a gimmick?
Yes, it's a gimmick. I mean, you could say 2 things about it. One is that it has no binding power on anything. And the issue of the Constitution is not that people don't read the text and think they're following. The issue of the Constitution is that the text is confusing because it was written more than 100 years ago, and what people believe it says differs from person to person and differs depending on what they want to get done. So I wouldn't expect too much coming out of this.
Except that, you know, the Tea Party has sort of used this to say, you know, we've got to follow the Constitution. I mean, they're constantly talking about it as a way of suggesting that our government has run amok. And yet, the new Speaker of the House has actually confused himself what's in the Constitution. Let's listen to John Boehner from earlier this year.
This is my copy of the Constitution. And I'm going to stand here with our founding fathers who wrote in the preamble, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights."
Ezra, is it alarming that the Speaker of the House confused the Constitution with the Declaration of Independence?
Oh my. I don't find it particularly alarming. Obviously, it's rather embarrassing for him. There's another part of this we should note, of course, which is that the new rules require that every bill names its constitutional authority in the bill's text. And what I want to point out about that is that bills don't normally do that now, but the one bill that did do that was the health care bill. In the individual mandate section of the health care bill, it names a constitutional authority for the mandate. It names the constitutional justification that the Democrats believe they have for it. And of course, the Republicans
And what
don't
is that justification?
Necessary and proper clause. Basically, there's the normal reading of the Commerce Clause, at least in our era, is that in a sort of a unified nation like we are, the government has fairly expansive powers to make sure that interstate commerce works effectively. The healthcare market is largely a federal market. People move from state to state. They get care in different states. And in order to make it work, you need to be able to pass federal laws about it. On some level, we basically do this with Medicare, right? Medicare is a federal law that has a ton of regulatory power over the healthcare sector. Now, because Republicans oppose the individual mandate, despite having come up with it in the early 90s, they're attacking it on constitutional grounds because they couldn't beat it back in Congress. But it's just to make the point that simply saying this is constitutional has no weight with either side. Republicans haven't said, oh, well, you wrote it in the bill, so never mind, we were wrong. We're sorry we doubted you. You named what you thought was your justification for it already.
Well, I think here's what's the key question, because one of the things facing members of Congress and this president is the budget battle that is looming. Now, we have a couple numbers here because we're facing a $1.3 trillion fiscal 2010 deficit, $100 billion in promised Republican cuts. We've got this all on a full screen. And $4 trillion in cuts is what was proposed by the deficit panel to do that by 2020. Is there anything in the Constitution that talks about a balanced budget?
Nothing. And it's interesting because a lot of the Tea Party members would talk about adding a balanced budget amendment to the Constitution. It's, of course, something the founders didn't put in there, and if they wanted it to be in there, they would have obviously added it. Similarly, the filibuster, which keeps a lot of this stuff from going through, that's not in the Constitution. Again, there's a very instrumental relationship people have with the Constitution. This goes from sort of us on the ground here in politics to the Supreme Court, where Scalia and Thomas and other members of it tend to be on different sides of the issue. States' rights when it suits them, more federalist interpretations of things like a marijuana regulation when that accords with their political beliefs. I've come to have a very cynical view of jurisprudence on the Constitution in that it seems to me that these legal battles almost always break down along partisan lines and have very little to do with any sort of enduring, eternal understanding of the document.
No doubt. Ezra Klein with the Washington Post, good to see you and Happy New Year.
And you. Thank you.